All right, folks, welcome to the interactive analysis we're going to be doing here. This is a sort of new thing we're going to try where I do an analysis of a game very slowly. This is going to be a very slow-paced thing where, you know, I have community involvement and we're going to take a deep look at a game. This isn't meant to be particularly entertaining. Just if you want to join in and help me while I'm taking notes, because this is the kind of thing where I'll be taking notes the entire time, trying to kind of get into the deep parts of this game, really get down to the nitty-gritty and analyze it, because I don't think we really treated it with the appropriate level of depth. You know, when I first recorded this game, it was to just kind of get some philosophy out. You know, I didn't really know what I was doing or what I even intended, nor did I think, even realize what a deep story this is. So upon further thought, I thought that we should redo this, and I'll be posting a lore video at the end with all the results of all this research that we're going to do. But if you want to interact, if you want to join on in and, you know, join the show and watch and see what's happening, or input some advice or challenge my own theories, go ahead. Let's do that. You know, let's do that. Please feel free to input your own theories and things, and together we'll sort of come to a community understanding of what this game is and what it's trying to say. So, let's go ahead and get started. Now, this also means I won't be chatting the whole time. This isn't like entertainment like the other videos kind of are. This is more of just let's play and let's see what's going to happen. So feel free to pop in, and I guess I'll start off. I'm going to start you guys off with something while this intro scene plays, because I think this applies to Ganondorf pretty hard. I have a statement from Joseph Campbell involving a message about the tyrant, and I think this is true of tyrants, not just in the real sense, but also in the, you know, metaphysical sense, and in the literary sense and subconscious sense. So this is a quote from Campbell. The inflated ego of the tyrant is a curse to himself and the world, no matter how his affairs may seem to prosper. Self-terrorized, fear-haunted, alert at every hand to meet and battle back the anticipated aggressions of his environment, which are primarily the reflections of the uncontrollable impulses to acquisition within himself. The giant of self-achieved independence is the world's messenger of disaster, even though in his mind he may entertain himself with human intentions. Wherever he sets his hand, there is a cry for the redeeming hero, the carrier of the shining blade, whose blow, whose touch, and whose existence will liberate the land. And that's from the Hero with 1,000 Faces. Hey, Fragments and Fractals, good to see ya. You know, Ganondorf does kind of fit that archetype pretty well. I mean, you know, he is the great enemy in the Legend of Zelda. He is the great tyrant, which calls the hero forth with the shining blade, though we are going to be using not only Jungian psychoanalysis and Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, we're going to be using Platonic philosophy, Shintoism. You know, I think there's a variety of elements that come together to make Zelda what it is. So feel free to, you know, pop in, leave a note or two, you know, and if you have any statements about that, let me know. So, anyway, let's read this right here. Great Deku Tree. And of course, Navi. Yeah, Navi is a strange thing, you know, and perhaps one of the most important elements of this game, because Link doesn't come from Kokiri Forest. You know, he gets the fairy, and then the fairy leaves him at the end. So, anyway, guys, let's get started. I'm not going to interrupt this intro scene too much. Kokiri Forest as the source of life. That's pretty important. And I'm going to be writing things down a lot, so if I have to, you know, slow down a little bit to write something down, I'm going to do that. This isn't going to be like the normal episodes. It's going to be very slow-paced, so apologies to those who are expecting something a little faster. But, you know, this is a new style that I think we're going to try and do, and if it works out, it works out. And Fragment and Fractals is in here saying Ganondorf is possessed of Ganon, influenced by the Bringer of Demise. Which is true. Demise from Skyward Sword is the root, I believe. Well, maybe not no, I think he is the root, if I recall. We'll go play that game eventually, but he is the root of the Ganondorf reincarnation cycle, which, you know, if you follow that Joseph Campbell bit we just read, calls into being the hero as well. And Jockey as well. I believe Fragments and Fractals isn't Jockey from Shintoism, or Shintoism, just Shinto. I'm not 100% familiar with Shinto. It's something I need to do a little bit more research on, but I know the basic beat notes, you know, of the religion. And it seems that the Great Deku Tree probably has a pre-knowledge of this reincarnation cycle, because he seems to know that Link is the one to embark on this journey. And also, for those of you curious, probably you also, Fragments, we are going to be doing Kingdom Hearts in this same manner, so I don't know if I'm going to replay Kingdom Hearts, but we're definitely at least going to finish up the games in this live stream style, which are going to be much longer episodes, probably. Less of me just chatting away and more of just, you know, plot analysis and stuff. I think it's notable as well that Link is always sleeping at the beginning of the games. I haven't played Breath of the Wild yet, but Link is sleeping at the beginning of most of the Zelda games I've played, and not in this one, I don't think, but in a few games he's the son of a blacksmith. And if you'll recall, Jesus was the son of a carpenter, and I do think there's something there as well as, you know, as sort of that creative force, you know, he is the sword himself, as well as being the hero. I know everyone's eager for me to finish Kingdom Hearts, and believe me, I think about it every day, you know, and my life just gets so busy. And I think this new method of recording is going to free up a lot of my time, because I spend so much time in editing, in research for the like I'll research, do a lot of research, and then I'll do the episode I'm going to make, and that just ends up being a huge pile of work for me that I just don't get a lot done, you know. And what I really want to do is get things done more than anything, you know. I want to get this analysis on the way, and I'm replaying this game because I think there's something here I missed, and also because this is the game that really establishes the myth of Zelda. It puts the myth, you know, right there, right after the Great Deku Tree, which we don't see in a lot of the earlier Zelda games. So we have Saria there, the eternal friend of Link, you know, who's his friend throughout the entire game. And I think when I was a kid, maybe I thought she might be like a love interest or something, but I think she really is more of the friend. Though, if you do go over to her house here, you'll notice that both on top of her house and inside of her house, because this is Saria's house. Oh, wait, no, nope, wrong house. Where's Saria's house at? Oh, it's over here, it's over here. Yeah, you see the hearts on top of Saria's house. Yeah, we'll get to Zelda's Dream when that comes along, because I think that's a very profound thing in itself. Dreams always have a very profound meaning. And Ganon being the dark cloud, and Link being the light that shines through. I mean, the hero is generally the manifestation of the true light of existence, if we're going to follow some philosophy like you get from Carl Jung, that the whole root of the hero is that there's an energy in the universe, and it sort of shines through and takes form. A penetrating light, which is why it's generally symbolized as someone holding a sword. You know, and you'll notice in Zelda's Dream that Link penetrates the dark clouds and brings the light. You know, very similar themes to what we see with some characters in Kingdom Hearts with the Keyblade. You know, that sword symbolism is still there. All right, well, we got the brothers in here. This is and I chose to play this version too because it's a little more fleshed out. You can see things a little better. There might be more of the author's intent in here. Like, what do we got going on over here? I wish I could get a closer look, but it just looks like we got the slingshot. There's an ocarina. And what does it say? I might have to zoom in later and see what that says up there. For now, I believe we have some rubies to collect. It's a super rainy day where I am too, and I am so happy to be playing Zelda. Zelda's so cozy on a rainy day. The hole of L. Let's go through this small hole. Why is it the hole of L? Hey, Kets are pathetic. Kets are apathetic, not pathetic. Kets are apathetic. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the new thing we're doing here. It's interesting that you bring up courage. I mean, you know, this game, that's one of the main things in this game. And if any of y'all were watching my A Link to the Past playthrough, we covered courage quite a bit from a Platonic philosophy, the point of view, which showed it as a sort of faith in the journey, faith in the adventure, you know, the willingness to go, even. Hi, Wilsper. And you know, it's something we'll have to ask is if Link is given courage or if he simply possesses it, right? You know, like, is courage something bestowed upon Link, or is it something that he earns? All right, let's get that sword out. So we finally got a sword here. Nice. And the Kokiri sword, I gotta remember to pay attention. My inclination is to just chat constantly. It actually takes a great deal of will for me to just shut up and pay attention sometimes. Whew. But we are borrowing the Kokiri sword, the great mystery or the great secret of the forest, you know, the treasure of the Kokiris, you know, which is something that's hidden away because the Kokiri, they don't really strike you as a violent type of people, right? Weaponry, and you can buy something of defense in the store, but something to attack, you know, you got to go into this hole and kind of get, and there's only one. I mean, is there another sword among the Kokiri? I don't think so. We certainly haven't seen one. There's no sort of soldier or anything like that. Hey, Ben. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I hate the time differences, you know, especially since I do have a good deal of people who do watch from the UK and Germany and all sorts of places overseas, which is super cool to me because I've never been to those places. So it's a really cool way for me to connect with people across the ocean. But yeah, this will be put up, you know, on the live streams page, and I'll be reorganizing the website to reflect, you know, the changes and stuff. But yeah. Oh, wait, let me move my chat over. I have a hard time seeing it. You know, that's a good point, Ketzer. The character is Link is the link to the character, and Shigeru Miyamoto, you know, if you read the Hyrule Historia, he says that Link was meant to link players together. And one of the original Zeldas was supposed to be a game in which two players designed dungeons and would have the other, you know, would have the opposing player travel through the dungeon. So it was a sort of way to link people together. So that might be the origins of Link's name. But courage, that's the thing, you know, I think about it all the time. Trying to figure out where that comes from for Link, because he's just you know, and courage, I know from a Union standpoint, is the thing you need to complete the journey. It's the thing, it's the power that makes it happen. You know, it's the movement. I don't have enough rupees yet. And something else about the Kokiri Forest in general. I know I'm just kind of wandering around aimlessly, guys. That's going to be a lot of this. This is going to be a lot of, like, I'm not going to lie, some of this gameplay is going to be boring because I'm going to be taking notes and stuff, so, you know, think of it as just kind of like a chill play kind of thing. But the Kokiri Forest is, if you look at, I like to look at worlds as representations of a psyche. You know, that's one way in which you can look at these things. Oh, there's that first reference to "You're a Real Man." There's a really good video about the subtext of this game that's a great video about what this game might in fact be about, including a lot of the Shinto stuff. And you'll notice that a lot of people say that to Link, you know, that he needs to be a real man, or that he is a real man, or that he's becoming a real man, sort of on that path to growth. I wonder if I have enough rupees yet. I don't. Oh wait, but you know what? I know where there's some rupees. Yeah, I just need 5 more, and I can find those in the store. Or just by doing this. But I noticed this game is... The Kokiri Forest itself is set aside from the rest of the world, you know? It's almost like if you look at the world as a psyche, it's like a severed part of the consciousness that keeps the childhood intact, you know? It's the source of life, so it might actually be this navel of the world, Garden of Eden place, though. That could also be filled by the sacred realm. I know a lot of these people are just tutorials, but I'm just trying to, you know, talk to them. And like, what's on this poster back here? You got mushrooms. You got a little Deku Sprout looking thing. Saria is in the newspaper. Is that a newspaper clipping with Saria in it? Not sure what it looks like. Let's put that on. Yeah, part of this too, guys, is, you know, like, doing the episodic stuff, like I've been doing strings things along for so long, and if I can just sit down and do one, like, 3-hour or 4-hour even live stream, I'm gonna get a lot more done, and we're gonna get through this a lot faster, and then I can really focus on the well-edited lore videos. I made a whole post about it on the main page. Yeah, this guy's, he's ruled by his jealousy, you know, but we'll see him later, and he'll have a little bit more to say. He becomes a little bit more accepting. You know, it could be that it's more of a friendly rivalry. Also, it kind of looks like this guy just, like, slept with his hat on last night. I see Fragment says the Kokiri, I always say it wrong, I say Kakiri, but it's Kokiri, which I learned from a video I watched, yeah, earlier, that that kind of implies tree people, you know, people of the tree. They're not so different from the Zoras or the Gorons, or any of those elemental characters, you know, they're the spirits of nature. The fact that they look like humans and children is probably just sort of a symbolic fact that this is the prime place of birth. This is the navel, you know, this is where infancy is, right? This is the place to leave. And thematically in the story, that also holds up as well. Let's get some sticks. I'm really glad the stream is coming through well. I was kind of worried it was going to be really choppy. All right, we got to pay attention here. Well, there's the first mention of courage in the game, so let's write that down as well. I've got one of those Kindle Scribe things, which has been great for me taking notes on this kind of stuff. He's been cursed, of course. You know, we know what's going to happen to this guy later, which is really sad. And you get asked. He asks you, "Dost thou have enough courage to undertake this task?" And you can say no. He's like, "What the fuck? I just told the fairy you were the chosen one. This is embarrassing." You're right. That's a good observation, Fragments, that the Deku tree kind of speaks, you know, almost like something you might read out of the Bible, you know, like very, very ancient and primal in his speech. So this is part of the hero's journey too. If you refuse the call of the hero, things stagnate. your life becomes stagnant. Everything becomes stagnant. There is no progress in life until you take the journey, until the hero takes the journey. So. I know, he just... He's like, oh god, I don't even know if he can do it now. And Navi. Okay, let's put that down too, because there's a reference to Navi and wisdom. And, you know, we got every reference basically to courage, wisdom, and power we're going to write down, so. Navi of wisdom. That's right, Fragments, that let me read that out loud, but the curses of Ganondorf have physical characteristics like the Heartless in Kingdom Hearts. And that's a lot of times because, you know, that in these stories, you can see evil a lot of the times as manifestations of the subconscious, manifestations of a primal darkness. And when that darkness gets turned into sort of conditions and complexes, it can take physical forms. You know, that's why in Carl Jung would call it the shadow or shadows, because those shadow complexes have a very real reality, even in dreams. You know, in dreams, it's often a monster or a creature that's chasing you. And here you can see that it's a corruption. You know, the plants themselves are corrupted. You know, the enemies in this area are spiders and plants and Deku. You know, they're the same things that were in the forest, yet manifesting in a very offensive way, in a way that wants to attack. Let's just take a look at this place and kind of get a good gander. I know there's a button that lets, oh, this is the DS version. I remember now. I gotta hit the view button. Let's just take a peek around. It certainly is a hollowed out tree. It's full of webs, which, you know, you might find that in a tree anyway, spiders and webs, and that's not all that unnatural. What's unnatural is the way that it's aggressive towards someone like Link. There's always a companion in Zelda games, as Ketzer just pointed out. Yeah, there's always a companion, and in games like Skyward Sword, you know, that's an extremely important companion. And I wouldn't put so much stake in Navi, except that Navi leaves at the end of the game, which I think is a very dramatic symbol. You know, it's one of the final things that Link loses. And this is essentially a game about loss. And, I mean, if you want to know my working theory about it right now, I think, you know, there's a word in the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God of Hinduism, where Krishna says, he says, "Time I am, the great destroyer, and I have come to destroy you and all things." And time is the great destroyer, and I really believe this is a game about overcoming time. How are we to overcome time? Because time and death are tied together. You don't get death without time. You don't get death without change. You know, time is change, is death. It's like it's its own little Triforce. Ah, yeah, gotcha. I'm already talking way more than I meant to. I was like, I'm just gonna, you know, play the game and have a few words, and here I just, it's hard for me to shut up. I think Ganondorf is a poison, but in a sense, especially when you look at this through like the lens of a hero's journey, the tyrant is generally also the father. Now Link has a sort of father. He has the great Deku tree. That's his primal father, you know, who becomes corrupted and dies. Now I think who replaces the great father or the great stranger, because before it was the great Deku tree, but later on it becomes Ganondorf. And in this sort of situation, which the father element or the older male element, you know, or the tyrant element, becomes too corrupt, is when the hero inevitably has to slay him, has to surpass him and transcend what he was. All right, let's get that slingshot out, that fairy slingshot. Yeah, where are we gonna put that? We'll put that on. Okay, let's keep going. I know there's a chest up here. I really don't think there's anything important in it, though. I think it's like a heart. And of course, Link finds his childish tools, you know, which are basically toys. I mean, a slingshot is no toy. I used to have one. You can do some damage with a slingshot, but, you know, in comparison to the bow, it's a toy. You know, the slingshot, the boomerang, the bracelet, or the bomb. I guess bombs aren't a toy. You know, I don't know what I'm talking about. Bombs are definitely not a toy. Let's see. Die! Also, I'm doing a push-to-talk thing now with my mic, and I'm controlling it with one of my toes. So I have, like, my keyboard on the floor, so if you don't hear me respond to a question, I don't know, maybe I'm not hitting my toe on the right button. I'm, like, doing this like I'm playing a piano. Or something. Okay, now this room tripped me up when I was a kid. It tripped me up so hard. I didn't know you could light a freaking torch. I had no idea. Also, since I got everyone in the room, does everything sound okay? Like, I'm so worried about the sound when I do these live streams, you know? It's something I'm gonna have to get used to. But let me know if the sound's a little off, and I'll make adjustments as necessary. Now let's get those sticks out. No, come on. Let's get the sticks out. Still figuring out my buttons here. There we go. Yeah, spiders in themselves aren't so strange, but skull spiders, that does seem odd. You know, it's a representation of death. And then we have the cursed spider, of course, which might be a reflection of the, you know, the family that was cursed was full of greed, I believe. So them being gold might be a reflection of their particular kind of curse. Absolutely love the music here. You know, I shouldn't ignore Navi the entire game, but I know everything she's gonna say. Yeah, it could be. It'd be interesting to go into the nature of that family that the golden spiders belong to, because there's probably something there. It's a very subtle story that I think gets reflected in Majora's Mask as well, so maybe we can find some kind of connection there. And, you know, another thing we're going to be doing is I do want to focus more on these legacy games like Kingdom Hearts and Zelda that have a big legacy with a lot of titles, because I feel like these games tend to evolve, especially Zelda, tend to evolve like myths. The creators don't know where they're going in the long run, so they have to constantly adjust the plots and the meaning of the story. And when they do that, I feel like it's a sort of way they can crystallize the actual meaning, you know? Because a lot of this is Shigeru Miyamoto's influences and the sort of way he perceived the world and his story writing team. You know, there's other influences as well, but it's good to focus on these legacy games. And maybe if we run out of those, which is not likely, we'll find something else to focus on. Also, these Dekus, they are fairly traitorous. They are deceitful, which might be the form of curse that they have, is that they're perfectly willing to sell out their master, you know, whereas we're going to great lengths to defend our master, the Great Deku Tree. There's a stark comparison there between, you know, this sort of fairy creature that Link at least thinks he is, and the fairy creatures in the tree itself. Am I gonna make it? Am I going to make it? I find this to be an odd contraption that's in the tree, but, you know, this might just be a puzzle. I don't know if it's part of the curse. You know, sometimes a pencil is just a pencil, and that's something we have to remember. During these live streams, we're going to see everything as almost symbolic. It's going to be hard not to, because we want to take advantage and look at everything. But when we do the actual lore video, it's going to be a bit more crystallized. We're going to focus on things, you know, that probably do mean something, you know. It doesn't do well to overanalyze things sometimes, but during these live streams, that's what we're going to do. But just take it all with a grain of salt, you know. We're just in the process. We're in the process of figuring it out. What's this on the wall? Is that just a plant? That's a little weird thing there. Ketzer says that the Dekus have a sort of fickle nature, or let's see what it says. Yeah, fickle nature, which makes sense for like fairy spirits and forest spirits. You know, they're a little wild. They may be your friend, they may be your enemy, right? Just like nature. If you treat it the right way, it can be your friend. You treat it the wrong way, it's gonna wreck you. And this is also something that you find in Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung's philosophies. That there's something called a threshold guardian, usually. It can be like Pan from Pan's Labyrinth would be a threshold guardian, someone who sort of lives on the outside and is mystical in nature, and they might be your friend, they might not be your friend, you know? It really depends on how you interact with them, how much you respect them. Oh yeah, fire in the tree. I know, that does not seem like a good idea. Trees tend to burn sometimes from the inside, and you can't tell it's burning from the outside, you know, there's just smoke coming from somewhere, and there can be a whole fire lit within the tree. But thankfully, it looks like at least, yeah, this does seem to be a sort of basement area, because there's stone down here. There is stone, it's bedrock, you know, like it's very deep. It's very deep. We're almost done with this first dungeon. We're making good time. you know, this is my day off, guys, so I'm doing it a little bit later in the day, generally. You know, I'm gonna have to, because I work in the afternoons, and because I've, oh, wait, 2, 3, 1, right. And because I've been playing Sonic Heroes before I go to bed, just on my own. I have to play video games for me sometimes. You know, I'll probably be doing this earlier in the mornings. Not super early, but, you know, for most people, it'll probably be around noon-ish that I'll be doing these, so I can't do anything about that. That's just the schedule I have. Echoes of Wisdom. Oh, you know, I forgot that Echoes of Wisdom even came out. I have not played that game yet. All right, guys, let's do this, boss. I'm gonna focus in so I don't mess this up. This creature has an interesting eye, too. I wonder if that's the same eye from the Eye of Truth. I don't think so. It looks a little bit different. Looks a little bit different. You run away. Of course, it's worth noting, too, this is a literal parasite. And this may end up being the true curse that was put upon the Deku tree. You know, we've had spiders and Deku scrubs, and that may not, you know, those appear later in the game as well. They may not be necessarily evil spirits, but this parasite definitely is. Look, it has a whole parasite tube where it's probably sucking the life out of this tree, which is something that happens to trees. Trees get infected with parasites. Parasitic mushrooms, all sorts of things. You can see them if you go hiking on trails sometimes. That's true, Ketzer. This game is testing your courage because this, well, I remember doing this when I was a kid, and this was scary. I was terrified of Goma. I was absolutely horrified. All right, I'm going to pay attention here, so. Thou hast verily demonstrated thy courage. So first act of courage, going into the darkness, going into the underground, going into the root of the tree, you know, showing Link's bravery. I could just say no again. I have more to tell you. What's that? Listen, no, this is very important, so we're gonna listen. This is probably the crux of the myth, so I might be taking some notes here for a minute, guys. But we have the crux of the myth here, which is very interesting because I think a lot of this game focuses on aspects of Shintoism, you know, with the way that you have natural creatures like the Kokiri and the Zora, and Jabu Jabu as representative spirits, and the Great Deku Tree as a representative spirit. But when we get into these higher concepts about the myth of the literal gods, to me it more represents that Platonic and Socratic philosophy, the metaphysics of a Western philosophy as opposed to that of an Eastern philosophy. I think there's a lot of things blending together here to tell a certain story about a particular idea. Anyway, so let's listen to this myth. A wicked man of the desert cast the curse. Oh, this isn't the myth bit yet, no. What a dick. This evil man ceaselessly uses his vile sorceress powers in search of the sacred realm that is connected to Hyrule, which contained the Triforce, which contains the essence of the gods. And if you'll remember, the essence of those gods are virtues like wisdom, courage, and power. How does courage relate to failure? That's a question from Ketzer Apathetic, or wisdom and power for that matter. Now, that's the thing, you know, I've always wondered that, and I do notice in video games that you can always get back up and keep going. You can always get back up and keep going, and I think that's where, I mean, you know, you really don't see that as super courageous, because it's not very hard to, I mean, that's what you want to do, you want to keep going. But that's the story, you know? You can fall and you can keep trying, you can fail or you can try again. You have to sort of have faith that it's going somewhere, that you can do it. I think is a lot of what that courage has to do with it. It's not necessarily picking the courageous path so much as picking a path and following it, you know, and making the journey itself. And I think wisdom, we talked about this a lot in A Link to the Past, wisdom is knowing that having that courage itself will work out. This is how courage and wisdom sort of tie together, you know? Wisdom to know that courage is best, and the ability to enact that courage with a sort of force, which might require power. And if you'll notice too that the Triforce of Power sits atop and is supported by the Triforce of Courage and Wisdom. I think it's very interesting that that's the one that sits on top. Yeah, if Link just gave up here, I mean, what kind of game would this be? All right, let's watch this myth. Notice he says, before time began. Before time began, that's important. You know, in the color, there's some big color symbolism here, too. Power being red, primal power, fire, you know, force itself. Wisdom being blue, the calm steadiness of the ocean, you know, of waters and of things that are, well, they're not always calm, but, you know, water, flowing, you know, invigorating. And then courage being the color of life, the greenery. Now, Nehru poured her wisdom onto the earth and gave the spirit of law to the world. The spirit of law, order. But it's Nehru, it's the Pharaoh. I don't know how to say Pharaoh. Pharaoh, or whatever, with his rich soul, poured life into the world. And if you remember what life is, we have to remember very specifically what life is. Life is regeneration and the persistence of regeneration. And we have to go back to Platonic philosophy here too for the Triforce, because it sits in the sacred realm, a realm of perfect form set apart from the rest of the world that contains the perfect virtues of the gods. Thou must never allow the desert man in black armor to lay his hands upon the sacred Triforce. Thou must never suffer that man with his evil heart to enter the sacred realm of legend, because those virtues become corrupt. And if we go back to Socrates and his words on this, you know, the corruption of virtue is what happens when life happens. Life is what corrupts virtue. As soon as you try to bring true power, true wisdom, true courage down into life, it becomes skewed. And it can't really be accessed. It's sort of this thing that does exist in a realm that is separate from life and time and all of those sorts of things. It's something that's eternal in itself. Oh man, here it comes. This part still makes me super sad. Now, you see, Ganondorf wanted this stone. He wanted these virtues, you know? These crystallizations of virtues. Like, for example, this is a crystallization of the forest, a crystallization of the water, you know, the focal points, the purity, so that he can get into the sacred realm. But he doesn't have these virtues. You know, he has to get someone else who has them. That might be significant as well. That's definitely a story you sit down for. Ah. Okay, I'm gonna have to take 5 after this. My back is killing me. I entreat thee, Navi, which I believe, you know, if we're gonna translate that into basic English, means he gives us Navi. He's gifting the spirit of the forest and the spirit of childhood, the spirit of the childish spirit. And Shigeru Miyamoto says this as well. He's like, you know, everyone has an inner child and it sort of gets lost. Well, Link is gifted with this inner child and it stays with him into his adulthood. And you don't know any other adults in the game who have a fairy. That's a good fragments. I gotta read the Sheikah Stones. I'm gonna have to go read them all. Oh, hey, Mito. Nothing to see here. No, I was gonna try and backflip over him, but that's not gonna work. I think in a sense here, you know, Link he's not directly being cast out or sent on the journey. I think it's a mixture of both. He has to go. The Great Deku Tree is dead. Mito thinks it's his fault. And plus he's been tasked with something by the Great Deku Tree. He really has no choice but to leave this safe abode. And if you're, again, to view this beginning area as a sort of safety, as a sort of womb, it's Link being birthed into the world. He's being birthed into the chaos of the world. We Kokiri will die if we leave the forest. You're not going to try and leave the forest, are you? So, you know, the child has to die. Since these are eternal children, you know, they can't leave. But Link, you know, he is to be born. He is to be born into the journey, which means leaving something else behind as well. You know, his childhood relations. This is the first loss for Link. It's not a total loss of Saria. You know, we get that later. We get that later when she becomes part of the sacred realm. But a memento of childhood is given to Link. Something even he, you know, we don't use that ocarina later in the game. We use the Ocarina of Time. But it's a memento from Saria, so I imagine Link actually keeps it, right? Another way in which he carries his childhood with him, you know, because the childhood is that, like when we were talking about that pure light energy, like with the Keyblade earlier, that's that pure light energy. It comes from childhood, which is closest to where that power exists. It exists before birth. You know, that's where it comes from. And I could go deep into some Carl Jung stuff about that because it's a really profound part of his philosophy and kind of the root of the whole hero's journey, of the whole psychoanalysis mission and ethos and all that. But guys, I need to take 5. My mouth is dry. My back hurts and I'm an old ass man. So I'll be back in just, give me 5 minutes. I should probably pause the game. I've got to get a new chair. The thing I sit in when I do this is like, it's made of wood, straight backed, no lumbar support. I need a real, like, computer chair or something, because I just been using like an old artifact of a chair. All right, let's get back to this. I do want to read something real quick, though, because I do have some interesting stuff here. And I'm going to be attacked by... You know, maybe I should go back in so I don't get attacked by the skeletons. A few notes about this first bit. And this is some stuff from Joseph Campbell, but I think it's pretty applicable. The first bit here. We have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. Think Link's previous incarnations. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only We only have to follow the thread of the hero path. And where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. Where we had thought to travel outward, we shall come to the center of our own existence. Where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with the world. And the slaying of the self, I think, is very important to this story. And there's another bit here as well. And this is about time. This is about the journey, because essentially, I think this is a journey to overcome time. For the world as we know it, as we have seen it, yields but one ending. Death, disintegration, dismemberment, and the crucifixion of our own heart, with the passing of the forms that we loved. And if you'll notice too, this is a game deeply about loss and passing over those things and losing them, and Link loses so much before the end of this. No, that's a good point, Ketzer. That's a good point, that power is combat, wisdom is puzzles, and courage is the adventure itself. Here we have definitely one of the old sage characters. I believe this is actually just Rauru. Rauru? Rauru. And there's that word fate. That is your fate. See, Link's journey is locked in. There wasn't anything, Link wasn't gonna get a degree in criminal, you know, psychology and go have a career in Hyrule Town Center. This is like something that he was gonna do. He was always meant to do. I hit no again, I always do that. Don't like those guys. Yeah, he knows, you know, he's Rauru, and, I forget, he's the Sage of Light and must reside already within the sacred realm, you know, I don't know, it's interesting. That's an interesting thing to think about. I don't really know his whole nature yet. He gets me every single time. That was odd. I switched up the screens. I didn't mean to. I didn't even know I could do that. All right, here we are, Hyrule Town, a very happy place, bustling in Link's youth, you know. And let's make sure we got to talk to everybody. That's just kind of part of how we're going to do this. This isn't going to be a speed run, guys. This is going to be a slow crawl. Hyrule, a peaceful, prosperous town. Things are well within the kingdom. You know, there may be the inklings of evil, but it hasn't been fully known yet. It hasn't been realized. This is the age of innocence. I believe there's a Skulltula in here, too. I forget where he's at. There he is. See, this guy wants something to happen. You know, maybe we can let off some steam by breaking jars. This guy is totally, he's a soldier, but he wants to break the law. You know, he's a bit of a rebel. He's got a pretty good beard. I can't lie. Yeah, we have a bustling town. We've got these lovers in an embrace. You know, these guys are all about each other. These guys are kind of lost in their own thing. Yeah, the owl himself could be an incarnation, you know, just like an avatar of Rauru who's actually inside of the sacred realm. So there's been a long peace, but as we know, there was a great war when Link was a child, so this peace couldn't have been very long-lasting, right? You know, because Link was brought in the center of a great conflict. Oh, they really redid this well. This is beautiful. This is the lady that really loves her dog. I don't think she's home though, but man, what a nice little pad. If I could just slip back there, see what's in the back alleys. I don't think it's that strange for packs of dog to roam the alleys. That seems kind of normal. Oh my god, is this guy just drinking in the alley? Look how many bottles are next to this dude. You know? And he calls Link a kid. Hey, what's wrong with loitering around all day? Like, he's not going to tell Link that he's drinking, you know? That's something more for adults. I think that's a nice little touch. Look, there's even more bottles over here. Should I? I think I should. No! No! What's the point if I miss one? We're gonna have to do it again now. Give me one more chance. There we go. Not that I need 40 bullets. I mean, there's always plenty of seeds around. I don't think the Happy Mask shop is open yet, but you know what? Let's talk to Malin here. Oh, so they're aware of the fairy boys, or of the fairy people. They're not all boys. Yeah, so as we know, Malin has a very, not the bad father, but he's definitely not paying attention. And I think, you know, milk in Zelda can be replaced a lot of times with alcohol, right? It's like a softer version of alcohol. Oh yeah, the Shadow Temple, good point, Fragments, that the Shadow Temple buried in the well is kind of a representation of the history of Hyrule's dark past. I don't think there's too much lore-wise with time being different here and in the town. I think that's just more of a game mechanic thing, but we are going to need to get kicked out. But that is, you know, he's not a fairy boy per se, but he's got the clothes. I think I can just kind of boink. No, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I wonder, I don't think Malon's mom is alive. I mean, I can't see any other reason she wouldn't be around unless it was like a hard divorce. Or maybe, oh, wait, no, Ingo's not, what's his name's brother. Well, no, they're supposed to be Mario and Luigi, so I guess they are brothers. Yeah, they're not married. I was like, they could be married, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's a whole lot symbolic about the chicken, but you know, the chicken and the egg, it shows the passage of time. You know, more than anything else, it's an old-fashioned thought. Everyone knows the chicken and the egg. Okay, we got to do this right. We don't want to get caught. I think it's right up here. The weird textures are throwing me off. Damn it! I've done this a million times, but I haven't done it on the 3DS version, so it's throwing me off just a tad. Maybe I can just head up just... I feel like I'm still doing this wrong. Ah! No! I don't know if Luigi's that envious of Mario. Maybe, it could be. It could be. You know, I always thought Luigi was cooler. Like, ever since the original Mario, I was like, I want to be the green guy. Totally. You know, I don't want to be the red guy, I want to be the green guy. Okay, let's try going up this way. There we go. That's the way to do it. What, Navi?
Listen.
Mr. L? Who's Mr. L? Oh, geez, those guys are gonna catch me. Get in the water. Now, we haven't hatched the chicken yet, so we are gonna have to hang out here for a minute. I don't know. I wish I had an idle animation. I could just, like, sit down. I think the way that Malon looks at her father, though, is a very childlike point of view, you know. My father was a pretty heavy drinker, and it's not something I kind of just thought it was normal, you know? Like, I didn't really see much of a problem with it until I was much older, and I was like, oh, you know, that's a very strange way for an adult to act. You know, and that some of the things were strange, you know? It's some of those things that, like, if you have no context for, through the experience of time and experience, you just don't know. Ah, you know, Super Paper Mario. I did play that, but woo, that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. This guy's not really grown up either. So yeah, looks like the castle does get regular deliveries from Lon Lon Ranch. You know, that it's a small lore thing, but it's worth paying attention to. we're about to get to another. There's so many important parts in this first arc of the game that it's kind of hard to ignore. You know, there's so much going on right now. Especially with this bit coming up about Zelda. We're going to have a lot to kind of sit on and think about. He's trying, yeah. Talon's trying, you know. He may not have the ability, you know. He might just be that much of a buffoon. Oh, come on, get in the thing. I love this bit. It's absolutely, I don't know why it's so much fun for me. It's the weird camera angle, maybe. I don't know. These guards suck, though. They are not very good at their jobs. I mean, if one kid can sneak into your castle, you know, maybe that's, though, that security's super lax. Because there's been peace for a while, you know? They're not too concerned that something terrible's gonna happen. Which is representative of childhood in most cases. In most cases. That's not true for every child, sadly. You know, but... I'd like to get a closer look at that statue, too. I'd like to see the rest of it. If there is a rest of it. You can't really get up there, but it's... What is that? You know, some small highlands, and... Is that another Hero of Time? Is that literally like a Link statue we have up there? I don't know. Or are they just some statue assets? Ingo just has malice in his heart, you know? He's got that envy, which is his undoing, and, you know, sort of shatters his own illusions a little too late in life when Link is able to beat him and sort of take him down to size. I think we're all too familiar with vengeful characters like that in our own society as well, which is, you know, one wonders what happened to them in childhood to make them so envious. Oh, huh, wasn't the little garden in the middle? Oh, they really changed up the whole thing here. And, I just give the chicken to Zelda. I'm like, hey, brought you this chicken. Yeah, you gotta shoot the pictures. See, look, you can see, look, some Mario blocks up there, some Mario stuff going on. You don't cause any trouble. Zelda, catch! No, I have to take this seriously. I'm not gonna clown this up this time. Oh, so if you'll notice, Zelda has the bird on her her little gown there, and the bird we know is from Skyward Sword. You know, from the Children of the Sky, or the people of the sky. They weren't all children. I had a dream. In the dream, dark storm clouds were billowing over the land of Hyrule. You know, that shadow nature you get from the subconscious. But suddenly a ray of light shot out from the forest, parted the clouds, and lit up the ground. That's that light of creativity again, you know, which is the creative, regenerative aspect of the universe that basically says, we will survive, you know. Persistence in the nature of the universe shines through in form, and that form gets represented in dreams as light. You know, she's so full of hope too. Link has the courage, but she has hope as well. You know, she has wisdom, and again, in a way, that's her own courage. Wisdom and courage are so closely related as virtues. That's why every piece of the Triforce is a triangle. I think essentially they all boil down to the same thing in different forms, different representations. I did rob her, yes, I took her rupees. Something tells me though, I'm just gonna guess from the big pendant she's wearing, she might have enough money. Stink. Strange, it sounds somehow familiar. You know, she is, yeah, she makes a huge mistake here, you know? That hope is ill-founded. You know, it's because we're in the state of childhood. We haven't yet experienced deceit, deception, or any of those kinds of things. Link has experienced death, but real deception hasn't been experienced yet. Please keep this a secret from everyone. That's a reference to the original Zelda game. Yeah, the Triforce is a fractal. Fragments in fractals. You know, it is a fractal, which means essentially, you know, it comes from the same thing. It is a perfect form. Now let's watch this here. The power to grant the wish of the one who holds the Triforce in his hands. If someone with a righteous heart makes the wish, it will lead Hyrule to a golden age of prosperity. If someone with an evil mind has his wish granted, the world will be consumed by evil. And that's because, you know, if we go back to that Socratic philosophy, someone who doesn't understand the virtues, which is what evil is, it's a corruption of the virtues. If someone who doesn't understand the virtues will skew the virtues, and they won't be the virtues anymore. And you sink back into that Platonic cave, where ignorance is, where you don't know, and you're full of illusions, because if you want to know the root of this whole Plato and Socrates philosophy, is that there's only one thing in the universe. There's one duality. There's knowledge, and then there's ignorance. And wisdom, power, courage, temperance, magnanimity, all these virtues that Socrates talks about, they all come down to one thing. You're either ignorant or you're knowledgeable. And that's it. You either know or you don't. He doesn't truly believe that there's any actual evil. There's only ignorance. And if you touch the virtues with ignorance, they become sick and skewed, and they don't actually make sense from a logical standpoint. But if you understand them, like Socrates did, and his understanding was the courage to admit that his true wisdom, which was that he didn't know what it was. And that sort of I don't know is the same, like saying I don't know is the same thing as saying I trust or I allow. Because then you're really letting the true universe flow through you. You're not trying to turn it into anything. And then you can really see those perfect forms for what they are. And then you can really grasp them, you know? And if someone like that, according to Socrates, becomes a king, becomes the leader of society, becomes the person who's having his wishes and desires granted, the society will reflect the true virtues of the universe. You need someone who's willing to say, I don't know. And I think it's interesting that Link doesn't ever speak. He doesn't assert anything. He simply lets you, the player, flow through him. I think there's something very Socratic there, I really do. You know, Fragments, I only saw the beginning of Berserk. I would love to watch the rest of it. It seemed super cool, you know, or even just read the manga, but I haven't seen all of Berserk. I'm just like, nope. I would love to just say no to everything, but I'm trying not to clown around too much. It's in my nature to just clown around in video games, and I'm trying to take this a little more sincerely. And the dark clouds. See, notice how in the dream world that the dark clouds are dark clouds. You know, it's formless. But in this real mythic world, you know, the myth that's being told, it takes the form of a complex. You know, Ganondorf's complex, which is greed, power, you know, whatever his aim is. I mean, we really don't know 100% what he wants besides power. And what is he gonna do with it? He's probably too ignorant to figure it out. Can you see the man with the evil eyes? There's that reference to eyes again. That is Ganondorf. I'm like, the guy with the stick and the helmet? No, she's like, no, the ugly ginger with the giant nose. Though he swears allegiance to my father, I am sure he is not sincere. Ah! What happened? Did he see you? Don't worry, he doesn't have any idea what we're planning. He totally knows what we're planning. He's listening. He can smell our plans with that giant knob on his nose. Stink. Now we are the only ones who can protect Hyrule. I mean, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I just want to see, because I know they make you say it. I don't believe you. She's like, oh. And I'm like, I'm going back home. Please believe me. My prophecies have never been wrong. Yeah. Yeah. And it's worth mentioning the king here too. The king doesn't really take a place in this story, but he is the center of power, and we can at least believe him to be a noble man, seeing the state of Hyrule at this point. He doesn't have the Triforce, but he has the power, you know. And Ganondorf is nothing without his power. It's the only thing he really has, you know. He's like, it's like the Triforce sitting atop courage and wisdom. Without that courage and wisdom, the thing sort of falls apart. And we got Zelda's letter, so people believe that we're actually on this noble mission. I mean, to an extent. Oh, that's interesting about Wind Waker. Yeah, that's one I haven't touched Wind Waker since it came out, actually. I haven't played it, so that's one I need to get back into, too. You know, I thought this would be a good starting point, though, because it's where the myth sort of gets introduced. Oh, our first song. Okay. My buttons are a little messed up, or disorganized, so forgive me if I do this wrong a few times. Like so. Okay. Oh, come on. Okay, I got it. Fabulous. Well, Ganondorf, I mean, yeah, he probably has pieces of those virtues, right? But it's always in context, Ketzer. Like, for example, Socrates knew a lot of sophist, right? And they had a lot of ability, you know, they had courage and magnanimity, or at least they claimed to. They had power and wisdom and things like that, but it wasn't the true power. It wasn't the true wisdom. You can take these things pretty far in your ignorance and think that you have them, you know, and in a certain context, they will be effective. But you're not really going to have it, and you'll end up foiling yourself at a certain point, unless you have, like, what he thought was the true wisdom, which was the knowledge of not knowing, you know, which was the wisdom of not having wisdom. It's a limited virtue, right? Like, because real courage would be the courage to give up, like, his desire for power. Like, why does he need that? Real wisdom would be asking those questions to himself. But he's single-minded. He has a single thing, and that thing is desire for something which Link lacks. He doesn't have a desire other than just to be. I mean, as far as we know, you know. Ooh, Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, you know what? I've been looking into buying a Switch so I can finally play the new Zelda games, because I need to do that. I do need to play those. I haven't touched them. That would be a fun stream. It would be a fun stream. All right, folks. I think I'm about out of energy for today. It's a little later in the day than I would normally do this, so we're gonna cut it. We're gonna cut it off here, and tomorrow, around, I want to say, you know, honestly, I don't know when. I'm gonna have to get this schedule worked out, because I don't know when we're actually gonna be streaming this. But you'll see me sometime morning and noonish. I'll be doing this some more, and I'll be trying to do it daily. So I'll see you guys then, and thanks for joining, everybody. This has been a really fun experiment, and I hope it works out in the future, so I'll see you guys next time.